Welcome to the Digital Journeys podcast. Today, we are talking about the AI revolution and evolution in business applications. AI, has been around for years in back office settings like IT and finance. But now, with the boom created by ChatGPT and generative AI, we're starting to see applications sprouting up for new front office settings, particularly innovation and R&D groups looking to understand more about their customers. So today we want to give you a full sense of the full journey. Where has AI been? Where is it going? And what are the exciting applications you should be thinking about for your own business? My name is Hans Mueller-Schrader, and I'm joined by my Cherry Bekaert colleagues, Hisham Nabi and Rashaad Balbale. So why don't we start with some introductions? Hisham, can you tell us a little bit about your background and experience with AI?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work in Cherry Bekaert's digital consulting business, really focused on helping clients with automation and AI. And really my experience has been helping clients really automate their processes, kind of the first step leading into AI and developing a data strategy that helps bring their data together to then action it so that they can develop AI processes.
All right, excellent. Rashaad, why don't you share a bit about yourself too?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Hans. So I'm a strategy consultant, with over 15 years of experience working with clients, really in the areas of growth and innovation. The one thing I'll call out is, unlike many of my colleagues, I left consulting for some time and worked in industry. So I really had the opportunity to lead strategy end to end, from design and program development all the way to in-market execution and just actually getting in front of customers. And so that segued really nicely into what I've been doing over the past few years, more specifically, which has really been working with clients to figure out, one, how to make sense of AI. AI is kind of everywhere. There are companies adding AI to the ends of their names every day. How do I make sense of that space, that world, and the capabilities that come with it? And then two, how can we use AI to really rethink the way things have always been done, from market insights to product formulation? And so that's really been my focus more recently. Excited to be here today with you and Hisham. Thanks for having me.
All right, excellent. So Hisham, why don't we start with some of your experience first? I really want to start this off thinking back maybe 5 or 10, maybe even 15 years ago. What did AI look like then in businesses? And, what were some of those exciting early use cases that existed with back office type settings?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So if I think back to like 15 years ago, I think AI was very much limited. And I think you'll see a trend where big data and data analysis was also limited, and they kind of go hand in hand almost. So if you think back 15 years ago, AI in business relatively limited, few applications compared to today. Business process automation relied very heavily on rule-based systems, and so machine algorithms were present, but very limited. And then you look at 10 years ago, data analytics starts to come up a little bit more, and you see speech recognition technology start to come out, right? So if you think back to when Siri came out or when Google Assistant came out, and that was almost the first commercial AI push, and you see AI start to primarily become employed in the regulated industries like finance and healthcare and defense. And then I think as you look at 2018, about 5 years ago, AI really starts to rise, right? And I like to look at the chatbots and the virtual assistants as really becoming the prevalent first big use cases of AI, right? So if you think about when you can go to a chatbot and book reservations or cancel reservations or buy products. And similarly, data analytics and machine learning techniques start to really gain insight. And really, AI has really taken off dramatically over the last several years. So, when we were preparing for this conversation, I was reading about a study that MIT did over the last several years, and they looked at 40 or so organizations and how they were looking at AI. Were they actually adopting AI? And in their analysis, they looked at the fact that in 2016 there was only about 4% of the 40 companies they looked at that even were operating anything related to AI. And today that number is almost 25%. And then they looked at the folks that were not considering AI, and in 2016 that was 26%, and today that's zero. So almost everyone is considering AI. So if you think about it, it's been a journey, but it's been a quick journey, and we are where we are today.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. So you already kind of got into, what my next question was that rapid change, kind of the major movement that you've seen and everything. If you think about your own work that you do with clients, what have you seen in terms of, doing business process automation or data analytics or anything like that? Can you think of an example where some of those new tools that have started to sprout up have really helped to, I guess, turbocharge, the results you were able to achieve with the client?
Yeah, certainly. So I can think of several, and I'll talk about two. One is just the immediate work that I've seen, and then one is a case study that I read about in the ecosystem. So we've worked with clients where we've actually taken their processes that were very manual, and we've automated them and developed bots for them, right? And that's kind of the first maturity level of AI, is developing these process automation bots. So one of the case studies that we looked at and did was, there was a health company that did invoicing, and there was a human that was involved in basically manually pulling together multiple files to invoice and generate invoices to pay things out. And we removed that human so that the human could focus more on value-added tasks, high-value tasks, and we put a bot in place, and the bot basically replicates what the human is doing, but is able to do it in the background, to do it through error proofing. So that's one area in the back office where we see a lot of kind of the first step into AI, which is really process automation and bringing in bots into the process. And then if I take the macro view, there's a very interesting example that I'd heard about recently, which was really around a spice company, a global spice company. And if you think about the marinades and spices that some of us like to use in cooking, the process to develop those seasonings and spices and sauces, it's a very cumbersome process. And they have actual flavor scientists that work through that. And so what I heard about was the spice company. They had flavor scientists who basically apprenticed for several years. And what they would do is they would look at some of the flavors that they had looked at before, flavor profiles they'd looked at before. They would have to narrow down into a flavor profile that they hadn't used before. And then they would have to iterate on it and test on it. So if you can imagine this process, it's not very efficient, right? And it takes a tremendous amount of time. And it takes a tremendous amount of time to push things into market, right? And what this company did was the first thing they did is they aggregated all their data. So they took something like 400,000 different flavor formulas, right, over a period of a decade, and they developed attributes for it, and they basically put it together into a data store. And then they developed a deep learning system that went through and narrowed down what flavor profiles to go after and recommended those to its food scientists. And so what essentially happened was that they were able to give their food scientists a system where they could achieve performance similar to what a food scientist would do with 20 years of experience. And they significantly reduced the number of trials, right? So if you think about AI and you think about its applicability, you don't really think about seasoning and sauces as an area where it applies, but it's certainly applied in this use case. So that's just two use cases, one that I found very interesting. The other one is an example we ourselves implemented at a client.
That is really fascinating. And I think it really starts to highlight to Hisham, this evolution that we were talking about, where, some of the early use cases really focused on just automating kind of typical human processes and tasks and reducing the error rate, that kind of thing. And now starting to do almost work that maybe people thought never would have been automated, right? So some of that creative work on choosing new flavors and spices, that kind of thing. And I can think about a couple examples from my own client work where it was very similar, right? Where they had a very specific scope of what they wanted to accomplish, and then they could apply some sort of AI learning tool to accomplish it for them. The one I'm thinking of was a pump company, and they really took, basically this condition monitoring software, and instead of having to manually look and determine based on whatever the vibration frequency was, what part of the pump might have broken, instead, let's take all of these harmonics and vibrations from, thousands and thousands of past examples and see, based on those trends, what is the criticality of this issue, what part of the pump might be breaking. And you can start to get into things as crazy as, sending the part in advance before you even know it's broken. I'm sending you a new impeller, that kind of thing. So all sorts of, I feel like, cases like that, where you start to see it actually being used to change how we develop products or how products themselves run. But that's really, really helpful, Hisham. I think, Rashaad, I'd love for you to extrapolate on this idea of some of the new use cases as well, and how you're kind of seeing it introduced into areas of businesses that it hasn't been before. Maybe even extrapolate on this point that we were just talking about, really around product and development, that kind of thing, and really maybe also describing what's allowed this to happen. How have we gotten to this point?
Yeah, absolutely. That is a great question. The reality, I think, is AI is not new to some of the areas that both you and Hisham have been talking about. When you talk about kind of the chatbots, or you talked about a bit about bringing together thousands and thousands of past experiments or examples to kind of get to a new solution. What's really kind of played a meaningful role in this, outside of sheer advances in computing power, has been something really simple. It all comes down to data. To learn, AI needs data, and it needs a lot of it. And really, growth in the cloud and just how widespread use of the cloud has become, especially over the past decade, has created an entirely new world where everything is much, much more interconnected. And this has allowed us to bridge traditionally isolated sources of data like social media and building permits, or point of sales and patents, or academic research and videos on TikTok, just to name a few. And it's been the ability to take in and look across all of these different types of data that has been the real unlock for AI. And so what has this meant? What has this meant, right? From a front office perspective, especially, I bet most people have already been interacting with AI in some way, right? Think about text to voice on your cell phone, to personalized recommendations on Amazon Prime, to Siri or Alexa. Hisham mentioned kind of customer service chatbots. These are all kind of AI enabled. But where the leaps have really come in, given kind of the ability to bridge across so much more data, has been in areas such as quickly uncovering new consumer insights, and then even more rapidly translating those insights into new product ideas, or using market insights to identify higher probability sales leads, or accelerating product discovery by rapidly designing and testing new product formulations. What does this mean, kind of, in example? A client of mine in financial services, we were using AI to identify how to get higher probability sales leads. And what really allowed us to do this was by bridging data from building permits and patents to real estate sales. We could preemptively identify where and which clients and where they were located, and when they were most likely to need commercial lending before they even knew, or before they were even prepared to kind of go down that process. And so you could then have a preemptive sales conversation with them and increase the likelihood of landing that transaction. Or from the perspective of consumer insights, being able to take in millions, literally millions of menus, and discern what trends are, happening across them, you could figure out which types of products to get into market before consumers are even thinking about them and demanding them. And we've seen examples like this take place with some of the big guys in the industry, with Kellogg's or Campbell's or Pepsi. These are things they are already doing actively in the food space to really get a jump start and short circuit, product discovery, and cut those timelines down from, 6, 9, 12 months down to days and weeks. And at the heart of it has all been AI, and what the real unlock has been there for AI has really just been the magnitude of data and the ability to kind of work across it very seamlessly.
Very fascinating, very helpful, Rashaad. Thank you for kind of extrapolating on that. And you kind of beat me to the punch when you started talking about all of these really exciting applications and examples, from menu design through to, knowing when to reach out to customers, that kind of thing. So maybe I'll just hop right into my final set of questions. And Rashaad, maybe I'll start with you this time, since Hisham got to speak first last time. What's next, do you think? Where do you see AI applications going moving forward? Do you see, significant change? Is most of it already here? Why don't you just opine on that a bit for me?
Yeah, of course. I appreciate getting to go first this time. A lot of the spotlight has been in areas where AI can help streamline or automate, customer service, sales, pricing, promotion. These are kind of the things that have become table stakes now. But I alluded to it in my last response. But the application that I've actually been most excited about is within research and development. And not just within, with developing things like new formulations or digital prototypes to test and market, though those things are definitely pretty compelling in their own right. But if you go to the front end of research and development, there's a couple of things in play here. First, how do I think about uncovering truly novel consumer and market insights? And then second, how do I build a capability around predictive trend detection? So companies spend a lot of money, time, and resources trying to figure out the next big thing, trying to understand what consumers will want and what they will spend their hard-earned money on. Not today, but tomorrow. The typical R&D discovery process takes a long time, and it's always been fairly analog. Think focus groups, ethnography, like true in-market, person-to-person kind of discovery, all trying to discern consumer behaviors and beliefs. And this has taken even best-in-class companies months, if not years, to even get to the idea. And even then, figuring out when the market, like the mass market, will be ready for the idea is the real holy grail. So many amazing companies have come and gone or stagnated in the market, all because they never reached the proverbial tipping point with adoption. Two simple examples you can think about. Look at sparkling water. This market has exploded over the past 10 years. But I'd bet most people don't know that LaCroix, arguably the first mainstream sparkling water brand, in the country, was first launched in the 1980s. And it took nearly 30 years before the market was ready. And what happened? Companies like Pepsi were able to time the market better and come in with a better Me Too product at the right time. And they've just eaten LaCroix's lunch. Or look at plant-based today. It's everywhere, or I like to say it's everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The number of companies with plant-based products has grown exponentially, but it's clear that the market just isn't ready yet. And if you dig into kind of what might be happening here, a big part of the reason is likely that there isn't a consistent definition for what does it mean to be plant-based. But until we have that, the market just won't be ready. And so many of the companies in this space have just come and gone. Some may stick it out, but the real winners will be the ones who figure out exactly when to come in and to come in not just with the better product, but at the right time. And you can look at example after example, Skype for Business, Mac, Segway, so on. The tipping point is the real holy grail here. And that's where I think the true power of AI will get really interesting, really taking insights and trend identification and layering on prediction. And that's the application that I'd be most excited about moving forward.
Yeah, that's really fascinating, Rashaad. And I think about myself, how would I predict the tipping point or something like that, right? And that's the sort of use case where it's not just replacing, or augmenting what people can do. It's really going beyond, maybe what we as business people are capable of today, just given that idea of, big data and all of the different sources it's taking into account, that kind of thing. So, um, obviously, I know we talk a ton offline, Rashaad, about AI never fully replacing, the role of business people and things like that, but certainly augmenting and, I guess catalyzing to a really great extent with examples like that. So really appreciate you sharing that. Hisham, anything you want to add as far as, what's exciting moving forward? What you see coming next from some of the applications you've been more focused on?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I like that Rashaad talked about what's possible. And I wouldn't be a technologist and a consultant if I didn't talk about what needs to be done to make that happen. And I see that the thread that's essential to make all of AI happen and this happen is really data. And we've been talking about data. So as I look at a lot of clients, their focus right now is not just on getting on that AI journey because they're hearing folks talk about it, they're seeing the benefits of it, but it's really getting on the data strategy journey, right? Getting on that data journey. So pulling together their data, coming up with a big data strategy, developing a data governance model, understanding what kind of data they have, cleaning their data, aggregating their data, because it really all starts with data, right? So and I think that's a critical element of all of this. I think as you see this year, clients are very excited about AI. They're going to embark on this AI journey, but I think you're going to see a major pivot towards data and data governance and data management and how to really collect data and understand data because that's kind of the first. It's kind of table stakes if you're going to do AI.
Makes a ton of sense. Yeah, that's a really critical element. Certainly, I know the other one, Rashaad, that we've talked about a bit before is the idea of, how do we want to use AI? What's kind of the change management required? Um, do you see those as also sort of kind of the critical starting points, or how would you think about companies getting started in this space?
Yeah, it's a good question because to Hisham's point, there's a lot of noise out there, and it can create a daunting atmosphere for companies for sure. And if nothing else, just look at the number of companies, startups, big companies alike, that are just slapping AI on the end of their name or on their website, and suddenly they're an AI company. That said, I think there's a few natural places to start. First, I'd say, with defining the goals and use cases for AI, what are the business problems or opportunities specific to your company or your market or your products where AI could have a significant impact? Second, assessing and auditing how ready you are from a data perspective. I mentioned this, Hisham mentioned this. AI relies on data, and not just any data. It relies on a lot of data and a lot of quality data to train the models and make accurate predictions. So without the data and without the right data, you can have the fanciest algorithms you want, but they won't be effective. So understanding where you are from a data perspective is paramount. And then third, and I'd say this is probably where many people get tripped up, is by with wanting to bring in a mentality of starting small and prototyping. Begin with small scale projects or proof of concept initiatives to test the feasibility and impact before investing the significant time and resources to really push something out at scale. Build an aptitude and a willingness to be a little scrappy and try something small just to get a sense of if it's the right solution or not, and put yourself in the position of being able to adapt and kind of learn quickly. And then lastly, I'd say, work with partners. There are so many amazing solutions out there, and finding the right partner or partners can help bring advanced tools or frameworks or expertise to the table immediately and help you get started much more rapidly. It would also give you the insights you need to start thinking about the longer term in-house solution, and if that's even something that would make sense in the long term. I think those are some of the initial steps I'd start to think about, just to put some structure around kind of how do I even approach the world of AI in a way that makes sense for me and my company and kind of where I am in my story and my stage of growth today.
All right. Well, this has been really, really informative. I appreciate you both making the time. Thank you, Hisham. Thank you, Rashaad. As always, feel free to like and share this podcast with anyone that you think might find interest in it. And please stay tuned for more from Digital Journeys.